So to you who are ready for the truth, I say this, Jesus says. Love your enemies. Let them bring out the best in you. Let them bring out the best in you, not the worst. When somebody gives you a hard time, respond with the energies of prayer for that person. Do you ever wonder why when people gave Jesus a hard time? I mean, listen to this, guys. Jesus gave the devil 40 days and 40 nights, but when the Pharisees came to test him, he didn't give them a moment. When the scribes came, he didn't give them even a second. He'd jump on a boat and go to the other side. For years, I wondered why Jesus always did that. He avoided these people. And then I realized he didn't just preach Luke 6. He lived it. When Jesus did respond, but whenever Jesus responded, he always responded by taking out the root. You ever notice that? Whenever Jesus actually did respond, he would respond in such a degree, it was so prayerfully saturated that whenever he responded to those that were coming against him, he would just annihilate the root so much that they would either just run away or be in disgust, or he would just walk right through them. Or he would just leave, or people would just be like, holy smokes, we've never heard anybody talk like this. Because everything that he said was bathed in prayer. When somebody comes against you, he says, turn your energies to prayer for that person. If someone takes unfair advantage of you, use the occasion to practice the servant life. Live generously. And so I was just thinking about how we live in a time where there's unavoidable death all around us. And so what do we try to do? We try to become substitutes for God's inactivity. Instead of being priests, you see, those priests, what did they do every year? They walked behind the veil. It's almost like a priest is like, there's that mother and there's that baby and it's been kicking at us and we know it's there, but we just need to make sure. And so somebody like walks behind. It's almost like the people that do the ultrasounds now. It's like, yep, there's a baby in there. Do you want to know what it is? Every once in a while, God will give us those kind of glimpses. And the priests, it's their job to just kind of look behind the veil and come out with encouragement to us. This is what it is, or this is what it looks like. But so often we're so afraid. Like even in our worship services, I learned at a Presbyterian church this last year at an Easter service. It's the greatest Easter service I've ever been a part of. Because on Good Friday, my son and I went to the darkness service. You know what the darkness service is? They take you through the whole road to the cross. And then on each passage, they blow out a candle for each passage. And by the end, they blow out the last candle. It is finished. And then you sit in darkness. And then we sat in darkness, and my son says, Daddy, what are we supposed to do now? And I said, I don't know. I think we're supposed to think about our sins or something. I don't know. And all of a sudden they had something, through the system that was supposed to be the ripping of the veil. And so we hear this, but it was a little too loud in the system, so all the older ladies screamed. And you hear this rustling in the silence and in the dark. And Samuel says, what was that, Daddy? And I said, I think that was supposed to be the ripping of the veil. And then it becomes humorous because I realize he doesn't know what that is. That just sounds weird. So Samuel says, what? And I said, forget it, I'll tell you later. So we leave that service, and to my astonishment, it's dark. They don't even turn the lights on. They just have candle lights or little lights to get you out to your car or something, So you're getting out of the building and it's still dark, and they don't turn the lights on and say, surprise! Don't worry. Come back Sunday. Remember, he's risen. No, they just left us in the dark, and we have to find our way out. And we go to find Emma, and she's in the children's version of the service. And Samuel runs up to Emma, and to my surprise, he says, this is a 9-year-old. This is a liturgical darkness service. It's got a special name. I can't remember it. But we just call it the darkness service. And he runs up to Emma, and to my surprise, he says, Emma, tell me about your church service. And she says, we just wrote sins and stuff next to the cross on the chalkboard that we thought that Jesus died for. Sam's like, Emma, you totally missed it. Our service was all about darkness and death. And so we find our way out to the car, and the kids get in the car, and it's one of those nights where the light's glowing. It's, coming on spring. The light's kind of going through the mist, those kind of nights, the spooky movie nights, you know what I mean? It's one of those nights, and we're all in the car, and all of a sudden, Emma says the most amazing thing I've ever heard said about Good Friday. She actually asked me this question. She said, hey, Dad. I said, yeah? I said, what's so good about Good Friday? And so we go home. I said to her, honey, I don't have an answer for you. That's such a great question, Emma. I can't even answer you. I'll have to answer you some other time. Because it isn't good enough to just say, well, Jesus died for us, Emma. Her question's deeper than that. So I said, well, it's such a good question. I think I'm just going to wait on answering you on that. So we get home. The next day, it rains the whole day. Samuel says to me, I know why it's raining, Dad, because it's not Easter yet, right? I said, the next morning's Easter. I go for a jog, small little jog before the service. Go for a jog, and it doesn't even dawn on me. I've been 2 days now in gloom and doom. And I'm going to run back. The sun's starting to come up. And I get back, and it's 45 degrees. Totally blue sky. And I'm looking at the sunrise. And I don't know why. At the time. I know why now, but I don't know why at the time. I just start crying. And I say these words. You've risen. And I go to the service that day, and everybody, you do the greeting. He's risen indeed. Most of the time when I do that greeting, I'm like, I feel so stupid. He's risen indeed. He's risen indeed. But my imagination can't just stop there. I have to ask myself, why did that sunrise mean something to me? And why, when we say things like, He's risen, why doesn't it matter to us anymore? I just heard this from a friend of mine that wrote me the other day. She's talking with people in underground church world, and they said,